All right, all. So today's class is what I call sort of CSS odds and ends. I call it odds and ends because, to be perfectly honest, it's kind of it's things that didn't really fall into other categories, and so now I'm going to talk about it here. So what I'm going to first thing we're going to talk about is a concept known as multiple selectors. Okay, so here I have exercise 1, and you can see I have an H1, an H2, an H3, an H4, an H5, an H6, so on and so on. I have all these various things, and I can preview it into my browser as such, right? Now, let's hypothetically say I wanted to make all of my text red, right? So I might do something like this. I might go H1 color red, H2 color red, H3 color red, H4 color red. Okay. Now I could do this and it would work, but the thing about this is it's very inefficient. I'm just I'm kind of repeating myself. It's taking a lot of space. Also, let's hypothetically say like this was for a client, and let's say the client decided later on that they didn't want red, they wanted green. I would have to go back and, literally change every option here, right? So that they would all match up and they would all change, because I can't just do one, that wouldn't be enough. Okay. So there's a better way to do this. It's called a multiple selector. And what you could do is, if I want multiple selectings to have the same style, like the same font color or same background color or whatever, I could do something like this. I could say H1, comma, H2, comma, H3, comma, H4, H5, H6. Oops. Yeah, that is H6. So what this is saying is H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 will all get the same styling. So first of all, you can see that this is a lot less code to write, which is great for us. Also, it makes updating this really, really easy because, what if like I said, let's say the client comes back and they want something different. I'm going to change this from red to green. Well, I only got to change it in one line. I don't have to change it in 6 separate spots. And it's automatically going to work. Okay, so you can use any sort of tag that you want in a multiple selector. You can also use things like classes and IDs. So you'll notice here that I have a class called text and an ID called paragraph. So let's say that I wanted to do something with an H1, the text class, and the paragraph. And I'm going to make the color hot pink. Okay. So you can see I can use both a tag selector, a class selector, and an ID selector if I want to. All right. Another way to affect a lot of tags all at once is to use something called the star selector. So what the star selector does is it literally selects every single tag in my entire page. So for instance, let's say I went into here, and let's just hypothetically say I want all of my text, all the text, not just some of the text, but all text to be red and to be italic, let's hypothetically say. Well, I could do this star selector color red and then, font style italic. So the star selector will affect all tags, everything. And see, everything is now affected. All right. I'm going to go to exercise 3 here. And let's take a look at our page here. So I have a heading 1, I have a div tag. That div tag has some paragraphs inside. That has a hyperlink. I also have an unordered list here that has some hyperlinks in it. I have a footer that has a hyperlink in it, and I have a paragraph that has a hyperlink in it. Okay, and I'm just going to preview this page, and it looks something like this, right? And let's say I wanted to style all the hyperlinks. Well, I could do something like this. I could use the A tag, and I could say color equals red. And what that does is it would make all of my hyperlinks red. But let's hypothetically say I didn't want to have all of my hyperlinks have the same style. Maybe I want the footer tag to have a slightly different style because it's in a footer, so maybe it's supposed to be smaller or a different color. So you might go, well, that's a good place for a class, right? So I could, footer link or something, right? And I could set a color and a smaller font size, and then I would go and apply it, right? Okay. So that's one way to do it, but the problem with that is that requires that I have the ability to go into the HTML and apply it. So there's actually another way we can be a little more specific about how our CSS is going to be applied without having to use classes or IDs. And this method is called a CSS compound. Okay. So a compound is when you combine, think about what a compound is in chemistry or in like a compound fracture or something. A compound is when you have two things together, or two or more, okay? So what we're actually going to be doing is combining two or more selectors together to be very precise about what exactly we are selecting. To understand how a compound works, we have to go back and remember how HTML works. HTML works in the idea that we can have tags within other tags, like having a strong tag within a paragraph or having a hyperlink within a paragraph. We would call that nesting, okay? And typically the way it works is that when you put a tag within another tag, the outside tag is the parent and the tag inside becomes the child, okay? And so you have this sort of family relationship of tags within other tags. This is referred to as the document object model, also known as the DOM, a lot of people will say. And so we can have a parent, it can have children. That children can have a tag inside of that, in which case that child the child would be a parent to the item inside of it. Okay. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, let's take a look at my page here. Or actually, that was exercise 3. Okay. What I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to draw out this document object model. So we have the body. Inside of the body we have the H1, the div, the H2, the UL, the footer, and the paragraph. So there's an H1, a div, an H2, another list, a footer, and a P tag. Inside of that div, the H1 doesn't have any other tags inside of it. Inside the div is a H2 and a P tag. Inside of that P tag is a hyperlink. H2 doesn't have anything. Inside my unordered list are list items. There's 3 of them. Inside each of those list items is a hyperlink. Inside of the footer is a hyperlink, and inside of the paragraph is a hyperlink. Okay, so this is my document object model. So what I could say is, right now I've been affecting all of the A tags, but if I wanted to be more specific, what I could do is something like this. I could say something like, let's say I wanted to only affect the hyperlinks that are also inside of a div. I could say something like this: div space A, color red. What this says is first find a div, then find a hyperlink that's a child of that div. So it's like it goes through my page and it looks for a div, then it finds all the divs, and then it looks through see if there is a hyperlink within that div. I like to read it sort of backwards, you know, where affect all hyperlinks if and only if that hyperlink is also in a div. So I'm going to save and I'm going to refresh, and you'll see that I only affect this one because this is the only hyperlink that's also in a div. These are hyperlinks, but they're not inside of a div, so they don't satisfy both conditions here. Okay, let's say I wanted to affect the hyperlink that's inside of the footer. Well, I could say footer a color green. So what this says is go find the footer and see if they're, you know, affect all hyperlinks that are inside of the footer. Or like I said, think of it backwards, affect all hyperlinks that are inside of a footer. So I'm going to hit this. This is the only one that is both a hyperlink and in a footer, so it's the only one that's turned green. You can actually have as many compounds as you want. So for instance, I could write something like this. What this would say is find an unordered list, find list items that are in that unordered list, find a hyperlink that's in the list item. So all three of these, oops, I didn't save. All three of these should satisfy it because all three of these, it found the unordered list, then it found the list item, and then the hyperlink inside of that. I'm going to go to exercise 4, and I'm going to preview this page here. And I'm going to take all of the EM tags, and let's make them, I don't know, color, let's give them a background color yellow. All right, so as you can see, it's affecting the hyperlinks, or the, it's affecting the EM tags that are in the Pete section and also in the Starbucks section. Let's hypothetically say I only want to affect the EM tags that are inside of the Pete section. So I might go, oh, well, let's look at this. Okay, well, all of these are inside of this div, so what if I did something like this? Div space EM, which means find a div and then affect all EMs that are inside of a div. Now, if I save and refresh, it's going to be the same, because if you actually look at the HTML, both the Pete's and the Starbucks sections are both divs. So that doesn't solve that problem, because that doesn't make this one any more unique than this one. So I have to find something that makes this top one unique, and you'll notice that it has an ID applied to it. So what I could say is this. Instead of saying div, I could say Pete's. What this says is find something with the ID of Pete's on it, then go inside and affect all EM tags. Or read it backwards, affect all EM tags if and only if those EM tags are inside of a container with an ID of Pete's applied to it. I'm going to save and refresh. Now, because the Starbucks one doesn't have that ID, it's not going to work. It doesn't satisfy both, so it's not affected. Okay. Note that this is actually based on the ID, not on it being a div. So if I wanted to come back later and change this div to a section, and I save and I refresh, it still works because this is actually has nothing to do with whether it's a div or a section. It just has to do with whether or not it has this idea being applied to it. So let's say I wanted to affect all the ones in the Starbucks. I'm going to use the ID that's applied to the Starbucks section, which is, oops, gotta close this out, which is Starbucks. So I'm using hashtag Starbucks. EM, oops, and let's do background color, aqua. So what this means is find something with the ID of Starbucks applied to it, go inside and affect all EM tags that are within. And there you go. So you don't have to use these, like, if you never used multiple formatting or you didn't use, you don't have to use compounds. There are other ways to do it. It's just that compounds can make your life really easy. It allows you to affect things without having to use classes, because there may be times when developing that you're not allowed to use classes, or it's at least very difficult to use classes, so a compound might be a great way to use it. And think about like a website, like, if you go to Chabot College, these are hyperlinks, right? These are A tags, but so is this, right? And so they don't look the same. These are styled completely different than these. So, could I make a class that's like navigational links and style, and apply it? I could, but by using compounds, I could say, nav A tags look a certain way, and then tags within events look a certain way, and then tags within a footer look a certain way. And I don't have to like make and apply a bunch of classes. It just makes your life a lot easier. All right, so try that out. That was exercise 1, 2, 3, and 4, please.